Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fan Appreciation Month here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a mockumentary from 2004. That movie is Comic Book the Movie. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I really don't know a whole lot about this movie. I do know that it stars Mark Hamill, and that he plays a documentary filmmaker who's filming a documentary about comic books and the comic book fandom at a large comic book convention. That's all that I know. Well, I also know that this movie is absolutely brimming with cameos from pretty much anybody and everybody who's had a small hand in, you know, like comic books and cheesy fucking television, indie films, what have you. There's a ton of stuff here. And I'm kind of hoping for this to be good. However, I've also seen a whole lot of mockumentaries, and I do know that unlike most other genres, a single errant slip-up can cause an entire mockumentary to just fall apart and turn to shit. I'm kind of hoping that doesn't happen here. However, I do know that is a possibility. But I am hoping for it to be good. But the only way for me to find out if it's any good is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Comic Book the Movie. Alright guys, I would like to say right now that out of all the characters I've seen so far, my favorite has to be the cameraman. I don't know if it's because he's played by Jess fucking Harnell and that Jess Harnell just knows how to act incredibly well, but there's just something about this fucking, like, stoner cameraman that's just really fucking cool. I'm kind of liking him. Okay, I'm really happy that they're able to work in, like, Kevin friggin' Smith's story about the spider in the third act. If you don't know what that is about, please, by all means, look it up. It is an absolutely awesome story. I'm kind of happy they're able to reference it here. I'm very happy with that. Are they really having a debate over Commander Courage's bulge? Okay. I totally figured we were going to get a bunch of nerdy shit in here. I mean, stuff that's nerdy even to me, but never thought I'd hear two characters talking about the bulge on a costume for a fictional comic book character. It just seems a little off to me, seems a little goofy. It just, goddamn, that was just a little bit, just wrong, man. Alright guys, I would like to say this right now. If anybody ever makes a movie and it is just solely Billy West and Jess, you know, Harnell just fucking around for 2 hours, I think that would probably be the greatest movie ever, because these two together is just an absolute recipe for awesome. I'm really kind of liking their, you know, scenes together, man. It's really cool. You know, guys, I really didn't want to say this. I was really hoping I wouldn't have to, but this film is beginning to drag a little bit, and I understand that happens a lot when it comes to mockumentaries as well as just regular documentaries. But yeah, this thing is beginning to drag a little bit. I really think that they could have cut a ton of this stuff out, but I'll get into more detail on that when the movie's done. Alright guys, I would like to say this right now. I would love it if Jim Cummings could play a drunk more often in his work. That was absolutely amazing, awesome, and funny. I really kind of liked it. Well guys, that was Comic Book the Movie. That ending was pretty good. Now let me shut the movie off. Alright, now normally around this time I would talk about the writing. However, looking at the credits on the back of the DVD here, and that's the one thing I'm not seeing credited is writers. And I think I know why. Since most of this movie was shot at the San Diego Comic-Con, I'm going to assume that they didn't have a script per se. They probably had like a layout, a storyline, something, and then they just sort of winged it and they got whatever the hell they could out of it. That at least sounds accurate to me. That kind of sounds right. The only items which seem genuinely scripted are the moments when Mark Hamill's character Don starts talking about the history of his favorite comic book character, Commander Courage, and Commander Courage sort of plays a vital role in this entire film. And he goes over the history of Commander Courage, and what the movie's really doing is it's giving you, the viewer, the history of comic books. It's just basically talking about the Golden Age, talking about the Comics Code Authority, talking about all the different genres that became huge at different times during the 50s and 60s. Well, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Romance, Western, horror, what have you. And they basically shoehorned in the Commander Courage character to kind of work in all of that, and it worked incredibly well. Now to me, that right there showed true dedication. And as for the story itself, which is basically about how Don has been asked to help out in the making of a Commander Courage movie. Well, it's not Commander Courage, it's Codename Courage, the ultra gritty, like Punisher-esque version of Commander Courage that was created in the wake of the September 11th attacks. That really is the plot here, guys. And basically about how Don is trying to explain that you really shouldn't have a gun-toting, superhero and even have him associated with Commander Courage, who basically was this, who basically was just this, he was sort of like this personification of all things good and patriotic and awesome, and then you turn him essentially into a Punisher clone that doesn't really work. So we have that as our base story, and of course we also have included, we have everything from a stoner cameraman and Hollywood, scumbags. It really does sort of add up, and it works very, very well. So yes, guys, in terms of story, the film here is incredibly strong. However, and I will get into detail on this a little bit more in a sec, the pacing on here is sort of a problem, but I will explain why, again, a little later in the video. Acting. Once more, because there wasn't a script, the acting here was pretty much all improv. And it was all improv very, very well. I'm talking, we have an all-star cast, including the cameos, who are all prevalent in B-movies, animation, live-action films, just everywhere and anywhere. We also have in there comic book artists, and, well, we also have in there, people such as, Hugh Hefner and Lloyd, and, freaking, Lloyd Kaufman show up. And everybody has to improv. And I'm going to tell you, about 99% of the cast pull it off in a spectacular fashion. If there's any one person I really just sort of think just did not do a good job, it would be Lloyd Kaufman. He is in the movie for maybe all of about 45 seconds, and he basically just sort of rambles and babbles and goes nowhere. And the scene, even though I honestly am a fan of Lloyd Kaufman's work, and I'm a big fan of Trauma films, I really think that the scene could have and should have probably been cut, just simply because it really does almost seem as if it's that start. It basically is that one little spot which kind of kicks off when the film begins to fall apart towards the middle. Again, I will get to that in just a sec. So yes, guys, casting here is fantastic. All right, casting, acting, all of it is great. Camera work here is really good, especially since it's all done with handheld cameras in order to have that documentary feel. And to be totally frank with you, about like half of the film is just footage from Comic-Con. So it's technically both a mockumentary and a documentary at the same time, because it's showing you what goes on over at Comic-Con, but also throwing in this story. So it kind of works both ways. It's a very it is a slightly different way of going about this. And the sound mix here is really good. Again, it really does sound as if all of it was done right on scene. So it didn't sound as if they were doing a whole lot of looping in dialogue or anything, which is probably good, because then it kind of helps keep because it kind of helps the movie feel a little bit more authentic. There actually are a couple of things I will question in terms of authenticity, but again, I first want to talk about the pacing problem, and this is something I've noticed with every single documentary and mockumentary I have seen. None of them are able to keep a perfect pace and just keep you totally interested from start to finish. Every single documentary and mockumentary I have seen have got that one little bit in the middle where it just almost feels as if it kind of sort of like derails, and it just begins to like fall apart, and it just kind of sort of like drags on a bit, and then it begins to recover. Now in this film, they were certainly able to bounce back from that, low point. And that low point's a good 10 to 15 minutes where it just drags. And it's especially a problem because for that 10 to 15 minutes, the story is going nowhere, and it's just basically our cast walking around with cameras going, "Oh, look! Oh, look! It's..." Insert, cameo here. Oh, look, it's Matt Groening. Oh, look, it's Lloyd Kaufman. It's all this stuff that just doesn't really work. It's just sort of there to say, oh, looky here, and it doesn't really help push the story along. It just kind of feels like it was just there for the sake of, padding out the film, and it kind of hurts your pacing a little bit. Which, again, I am a fan of Lloyd Kaufman, I am a fan of Matt Groening, but I'm going to tell you right now, their scenes could probably both have been completely cut, and the movie would probably have benefited from it, which is kind of sad. Now, again, that is something which plagues every single mockumentary and full-on documentary I have seen, so I honestly am not faulting the movie for it. It was something I kind of knew was going to happen, and I am happy that they were able to rebound and actually regain my interest towards the end, which is something a lot of documentaries and such are not able to fully pull off. So now let's talk about those little questionable bits in terms of authenticity. First of all, Billy West's character is Billy West plays the grandson of the creator of Commander Courage, and at one point he has to give a speech at this big panel as the studio is showing off the new Codename Courage film, and it's all really good, but unfortunately Billy West kind of sort of shows his hand a little bit too much, because his speech is making tons and tons of comic book references that somebody who had been absolutely unfucking familiar with comic books until just a few scant days back would never be able to make. So I am happy that Billy West was able to make those sorts of references. It's just that his character wouldn't have, knowing that his character has such a minimal, almost non-fucking existent knowledge of the world of comic books. Again, that is just me like going and nitpicking itty bitty things. The other thing is when Don's character goes and he commissions a Commander Courage costume, and again this thing plays heavy into the entire film. The costume is supposed to look exactly like Commander Courage looked in the comics, and they show you tons and tons of fake covers and comic panels and everything else to show you what Commander Courage looked like. The only thing which they got right was the cape and the mask. Everything else looked way off. And I kind of understand that, this fucking movie was kind of sort of like working on a budget and this and that, but I really think that if Mark Hamill's character was as much of a Commander Courage fan as he claimed to be, he would have had a huge problem with the fact that essentially the costume is just a cape and undies and basically like padded, flesh. It looked way off, especially when you see so many of those comic panels and comic covers and everything else. It just seems so out of place and weird. Again, it's a minor thing. It's an incredibly nitpicky thing, but I kind of wanted to mention it. Now, the other thing is, right towards the end, and I'm not going to spoil much here, but Don is unable to get to the panel, and apparently there was still a cameraman in the room with him, which, again, it kind of sort of smashes away the whole, this thing is supposed to look like a documentary sort of thing, because I don't know why you would have either a stationary camera running or a cameraman there with him as he is detained. It just doesn't seem like something which a Hollywood executive would do if they're trying to hold somebody hostage if that person's trying to derail their film. Again, it's a real minor thing. It's a real minor, nitpicky, stupid thing, but I kind of felt the need to mention it. Now, when all is said and done, am I able to recommend Comic Book, the movie? Well, yeah, I am, as long as you understand that, yes, it does kind of sort of drag on in the middle slightly. And you have to be a big fan of comic books in order to really get about 3/4 of the references in this thing. Plus, you also have to have knowledge of things such as like Kevin Smith's experience working on Superman Returns. That actually is the story involving the giant spider, and it actually gets brought up a second time in here, and it just kind of made me smile. I really just have to say I'm really happy with just the mountain of references which were in here. However, if you are not a colossal geek such as me, and apparently such as Mark Hamill and Billy West and the rest of the people who worked on this, then a whole lot of this is going to go just right over. It's just going to go right over your head, or you aren't going to be able to fully appreciate the writing. So basically, this thing is fantastic if you are a colossal nerd. Otherwise, it might be seen as okay. Now, because this is Fan Appreciation Month, Comic Book the Movie came off of the Amazon wish list. The person who sent it in is a YouTuber, of course, and his YouTube channel is, I actually have it written down here, it is Albedo238. Dude, thank you very much. I've been curious about this thing for years, and now I finally got to watch it, and this thing, it personally just made me happy as a comic book nerd to see that there are big name celebrities who also are like-minded comic book nerds who could make this love letter to comic fans everywhere, and it was fantastic. So yes, guys, please do me a favor and swing on over to his YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/user/albedo238. Swing over there and check out anything and everything he has, and once more, dude, thank you very much. This thing here is going to have a happy spot in my DVD collection, especially since I am now looking at the bonus features on the back, and I'm probably going to have a lot more fun with the bonus features than I actually had with the movie, which is saying a lot because the movie was pretty good. So yes, guys, with that we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.